Okay, let's jump right in. Today, we're talking about one of the most famous, most recognizable buildings in the entire world, the Roman Colosseum. It's a place that's really known for two things, just unbelievable engineering and, well, some incredibly brutal entertainment. 50,000. Let's just start with that number. That's how many people, how many spectators could be packed inside the Colosseum at one time. To give you some perspective, think about a huge modern baseball stadium. That's the kind of crowd we are talking about. It was absolutely gigantic. So why even build something this enormous? Well, it all goes back to around 70 AD and an emperor named Vespasian. He decided to build it as this spectacular gift for the Roman people. It was a way to get them on his side, to show everyone how rich and powerful his family was. And honestly, it was a brilliant political move.
Right, so an engineering masterpiece. But how in the world did they actually build this thing almost 2,000 years ago without modern machinery? Let's dig into the incredible materials and techniques they were using. The Romans were just masters of engineering, and their choice of materials here was genius. For the main structure, the parts that had to hold all the weight, they used these massive blocks of travertine limestone. But their real secret weapon was Roman concrete. This stuff was a complete game changer. It allowed them to build those iconic, strong, curved arches that supported the whole thing. And get this, when it was brand new, the entire outside was covered in a layer of gleaming white marble. It must have looked incredible. And the outside wasn't just some boring wall either. It was a total showcase of Roman design. If you look closely at the columns on the outside, you'll see they actually change on each level. The ground floor has this simple, sturdy Doric style. Go up a level and you see the Ionic style, which is a bit more decorative. And then way up on the third floor, you have the most ornate and fancy style called Corinthian. It was such a clever trick to make this massive building feel a bit more elegant and not so blocky.
Okay, so let's head inside. Once you got through those arches, where you sat told everyone everything about your place in Roman society.
This seating chart is basically a perfect map of how Roman society worked. It was incredibly strict. Down at the bottom, with the best views in the house, you had the emperor and the senators sitting on actual marble benches. Right above them were the wealthy knights. Higher still sat the ordinary Roman citizens. And way, way up at the very top, in what we'd call the nosebleed seats, that's where women and the poor had to sit. Your seat was a public statement about who you were. So with all these different sections and 50,000 people rushing in, how did they avoid total chaos? Well, they had a really clever ticketing system. Your ticket was literally a piece of broken pottery called a shard. It had numbers carved into it that told you exactly which gate to use, which level to go to, and even which row to sit in. So simple, but it was an incredibly effective way to manage those huge crowds. Now for the main event. Everyone's in their seats. What exactly did all these people come to see? Well, a day at the Colosseum was a full schedule of spectacular, and often very brittle, entertainment. The show started in the morning with wild animal hunts, which the Romans called venationes. They would bring in exotic beasts from all over the empire. We're talking lions, elephants, crocodiles, to be hunted in the arena. Midday got pretty grim. That slot was often reserved for public executions. And then the headline act in the afternoon, what everyone was waiting for, was, of course, the gladiator battles. So who were these gladiators, really? They were professional fighters trained for one purpose: public entertainment. Most were slaves or prisoners of war who were forced into this deadly life. But here's the twist. If a gladiator was successful and popular, they could become a massive superstar. They could get rich and famous, almost like a top athlete today. And the fights weren't just random brawls. They were often carefully planned matchups, kind of like in wrestling today. For instance, you might see a fighter in heavy armor with a sword and shield, all about strength and defense, pitted against a fast, lightly armored fighter who used a net and a trident to trap his opponent. That variety is what made the combat so unpredictable and exciting for the crowd. But the action you saw on the sandy arena floor was only half the story. The real magic of the show came from incredible technology that was hidden from view, both deep underground and high above the crowd. I mean, imagine sitting in your seat and suddenly a lion just appears in the middle of the arena, as if from thin air. How did they do that?
The answer was an amazing underground system called the Hypogeum. You can think of it as a huge two-level backstage area, a maze of tunnels, animal cages, and elevators, all right underneath the arena floor. Animals, scenery, and gladiators were held down there and then lifted up through trapdoors using a complex system of pulleys. This allowed for those dramatic, surprise entrances that just blew the crowd's minds.
And if you looked up from your seat, you'd see another engineering marvel, the Valerium. This was basically a giant retractable roof, a massive canvas awning that could be pulled across the top to shade the crowd from the hot Roman sun. It was so enormous and complex that it took a special team of sailors from the Roman Navy to operate it, using 240 huge masts to pull the canvas across. Just incredible. So the games eventually stopped, and the Roman Empire fell. What happened to this incredible building? Let's take a look at the Colosseum's long journey from the end of the games to its status as a global icon. After the gladiator games were banned in the 5th century, the Colosseum fell on really hard times. It was damaged by earthquakes, and for centuries, people treated it like a free hardware store. They took its stone and even the iron clamps that held the blocks together to build other things in Rome. It wasn't until the 1700s that it finally started to be protected, and from there, it slowly became the world-famous symbol of history it is today. And its importance today is just undeniable. Every single year, more than 6 million tourists come from all over the world to walk through its arches. And just try to imagine what it must have been like almost 2,000 years ago.
So how should we remember the Colosseum? It's this breathtaking monument to Roman engineering genius and creativity. But it was also a stage for unimaginable violence and cruelty. Which brings us to a final question. Is it an icon of creativity or a monument to cruelty? Maybe the most powerful thing about the Colosseum is that it's absolutely, undeniably both.